tell you, Dan, it's a tremendous time to be alive. And it's so clear what's going on when the socialists try to take over, and they are taking over. They get rid of guns. We are going to keep pushing, make sure we get the right leaders in this country, because the other ones want to take our guns away. And that's what happened in South Africa. People are defenseless. I think the fact that these movies that we showed a few minutes ago are from Lorna, who is a friend of ours, who was here in Louisville not long ago, and she risked her life to get this footage to us, and she took it herself. You can see her holding the cell phone up. Here is more. There's a guy killing somebody with a stick. You don't need a gun. If the heart is not right and you hate people, then you're going to have problems all around. So we want to get the right people in leadership in this country, and we do not want these people that say, oh, socialism is the way to go. That's like Bernie Sanders and Cortez, all of these people that say we need more socialism, we need more gun control. You can see what happens when the gun control. There's Lorna holding up her cell phone right there, risking her life to get these videos to us. And that's within the last week or so. Is that not true?
Yeah, all these things erupted in the last week. See the stores being looted.
And the Nigerians are trying to fight back, because a lot of these store owners were Nigerian, and it's a lot of what you call black on black crime. They're killing the Nigerian because who knows why.
Well, they said they took their jobs away from them.
Unbelievable.
It's so wrong. It's wrong.
Look at Zimbabwe. They're having huge depression there because they burned all the farms and killed all the farmers there in Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe was the food capital of the world. Last night we heard that Robert Mugabe, who was a real socialist, died at the age of 95. He caused absolute misery for Zimbabwe and destroyed the economy of a whole country. That country today is in a humanitarian food crisis. You cannot even get pharmaceuticals. You battle to even get gasoline. So things are totally chaotic. And that's all caused by socialists who wanted to destroy a country.
Well, you look at Venezuela, socialists took that over, and now the people are starving. I saw a video of children trying to get food out of a garbage truck. Now South Africa is going through this socialist revolution, and Zimbabwe, Venezuela, over and over and over again. When the socialists get in there, they want to take over everything and get control of people by getting rid of the guns and getting rid of the food. It's a very serious thing how they are trying to take control of people because they're socialists.
One of the interesting points is that Venezuela was one of the richest oil-producing countries in the world. And when Madeira and all those socialist gangsters took over the country, all of that was reduced to nothing.
The idea of the socialists are trying to cause trouble. They want to take control of everybody, and they're going to take control of America too. If you vote for the socialists, you're probably going to bring this into you and your neighborhood and your children. That's one thing we do not want, is socialism to come in and take over, like Cortez and all of these socialists, Bernie Sanders. It's a big fake. They say, oh, this is going to solve all of our problems, but really it's just the beginning of problems.
It's amusing. The socialists have promised many of the students that everything is going to be free. But actually, you've got to use other people's money to make things free.
That's right.
It's an absolute lie. There's no such thing. There's nothing called free. Other people have to work for the free, and they tax the middle class so heavily to produce money so they can give money to
brother,
those that want everything for free.
Well, I tell you, Brother Dan, we're getting out of time. I want to say this once more. This is the answer. We've talked about problems, but now we're going to talk about the answer. The answer is truth for youth and the Word of God, these comic books that are all about the moral issues of the day. And these are absolutely free because we're going to give them to you for free because we're in a desperate situation. You could see these movies. You know how desperate it is. The number to call to get your free copy right now is 502-893-2444. And you can call right now. And if there's an answering machine, put your name and phone number. We'll get this out to you right away, and address. You have to have your address too so we know where to send it. But give us a call right now, and with God's help, we can turn America back to God. God bless you, Brother Dan.
Thank you. I want to just reiterate what President Donald Trump said. He said America will never become a socialist country, and we support it.
Well, God bless you. Tune in again next week for the rest of the news. Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Simon. I'm an allergist and family doctor, board certified in both allergy and internal medicine. I specialize in allergy, headaches, sinus, hives, cough, asthma, hypertension, and diabetes. We're located at 1404 Browns Lane near Norton Suburban Hospital. Our phone number is 895-5088. We can see you tomorrow. Hi, this is Frank Simon with Corbin Seavers. We're going to talk about a trip from socialism to patriotism. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you sent us a good video that goes into some of the aspects of this, so we would like to show that now and kind of introduce the subject. This is an interview with a gentleman named Riley.
Yes, Jason L. Riley.
He understood laws couldn't accomplish everything, but he also knew that only the law could anchor change and set hearts and minds on a different course.
That was President Obama earlier this year praising President Lyndon Johnson as the nation prepares to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Civil Rights Act, the landmark legislation that outlawed racial discrimination. But half a century later, my guest this week says that liberal policies and well-intentioned welfare programs are holding back Black Americans. Wall Street Journal editorial board member Jason Riley is author of the new book, Please Stop Helping Us, How Liberals Make It Harder for Blacks to Succeed. So, Jason, what policies are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about a lot of the Great Society programs that we're celebrating or marking the 50th anniversary of. I'm talking about anti-poverty programs. I'm talking about policies such as minimum wage laws, occupational licensing, and things like that. Affirmative action is another one. These are laws that were intended to help. The intention was good and honorable and noble, but that's different. It doesn't mean that the policies work just because the intentions behind them were good.
Okay, but what about the argument that you had a century of Jim Crow in much of the country, which was essentially legislated, the government enforced impoverishment, okay? Lack of access to the voting booth, lack of access to jobs, lack of access to public transportation. And to get over that, help people escape that century of built-in bad behavior and government mismanagement, you needed something like the Great Society.
Well, what we needed was equal treatment under the law. We needed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Those were needed. We got those. The problem is when the government tries to go beyond equal opportunity and ensure equal results. That's when you get into trouble. What I'm arguing is that Black people must ultimately help themselves. They must develop the types of habits and attitudes and behavior that other groups have had to develop in order to succeed. And to the extent a government program gets in the way of that, or hampers that self-development that must take place. It ultimately does more harm.
In a way, you are, and I think this is one of the most interesting things in your book, trying to resurrect an intellectual tradition that has really strong roots going back in American history. Frederick Douglass, great abolitionist, former slave, talked about keeping dependence. Booker T. Washington. Why has that tradition become so much less prominent inside the African intellectual community?
Well, I think the civil rights movement has become an industry, and it's a very lucrative industry. And what you've seen over the past 50 years is an attempt by the black elite to stay relevant. And what I try to get across in this book is that it's much more important for the black poor to have a man in the home than to have a man in the White House like they have today. And I think the Obama presidency shows that overwhelmingly is the case, that the things that ail the black community are not going to be solved by politicians. They're going to be solved by the black community getting its own act together internally. It's going to start with the family.
But if the results are as awful as you argue, why hasn't there been a revolt intellectually and then politically within the African American community itself?
On the one hand, you have the history of segregation and who was on what side back then. A lot of people are still alive that lived under Jim Crow. So among older blacks, you're going to have that historical memory there.
He's made a journey from socialism to patriotism. He's written a book that says that the government has been trying to help black people, but really they are doing more harm than good because of unintended consequences.
Yes, yes. The full title of the book, Please Stop Helping Us, How Liberals Make It Harder for Blacks to Succeed. It's a great book. It's a fantastic book I think everybody should read. He's also a writer for the Wall Street Journal, fantastic scholar. And what I like about the book is that he offers empirical evidence. He just doesn't sit up there and give a lot of emotional statements like, oh, we have to raise the minimum wage. We have these struggling mothers out here with all these kids. And we don't raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, doom these people to eternal poverty. And he's got a chapter in this book dedicated to showing how the raising of the minimum wage reduces job opportunity for low-income people.
Sure.
It's not bringing them out of poverty at all. And as a matter of fact, he goes as far as to say it's very difficult for you to find any scholarly economist who supports the position that raising the minimum wage is a good thing for poor people. It's just simply does not prove it. And that dates back from the time it was first instituted under FDR to now.
And he also, let's see, what else? It says that the main thing that we need is more men in the home.
We need to be more focused on the man in the home as opposed to the man that's in the White House. There has been a dramatic shift within the black community with that kind of emphasis. I would say from about the 1960s forward, that major emphasis has always been, oh, we have to get the right guy in the White House. We have to get the right guy in the White House. Whereas pre that time, black folk has survived and progressed because there was a strong focus on the family. Right now in the black community, it's female-dominated household. But that wasn't the case pre-1960. Even post-emancipation, that was not the case. Dr. Allen Keyes, another black conservative, some of his writings, he shows that points of his writings. When you read the autobiographies of black folk who were actually slaves and then were emancipated, they talked about how there was a man and a woman in a household. There was mom and dad. Whereas today, it's the single-parent household dominated by the woman is almost celebrated. That's not the way it's always been.
His point is that you need a husband and wife in order to raise a family.
It's always been sort of assumed within the black community. Only recently, I think in large part due to the heavy influence of cultural Marxism in society as a whole, talk about the importance of having a black male, black fathers in the household, you're almost criticized for it. You notice when Barack Obama, when he went to a HBCU, historically black college and university, that was his main lecture there. But it was sort of quiet. I guarantee you, if you had any white conservatives stand up and say, hey, we need more black fathers in the household, oh, he's a racist, he's an animal.
Obama would say that?
I think if you had a white conservative say that, as far as black fathers in the household, we need more black fathers in the household, he'd be called a racist. Obama said it, but is very quiet. You rarely heard anything about it. That's one thing we can all agree on. But the white liberal, the white left, the black allies, they don't want to talk about that because that doesn't fit their agenda. And that's why they also don't want to talk about the minimum wage in a scholarly manner. Show me the evidence that the minimum wage works.
Right.
It's not there. The minimum wage, I think even going back to George Bush, has been raised. Every administration has raised it. What did it do? Today, you still got a bunch of nut jobs on the Democratic Party talking about reparations. Oh, wait a minute. I thought that we raised the minimum wage under Bush, under Clinton, under Obama. It didn't work. So obviously it didn't work because you're whining and crying saying you want reparations. Under Trump, did we raise the minimum wage? No. What we did is that we unleashed the economy. We reduced taxes, reduced regulation. We're at the point all across the country. People just walk around, just drive around the city. What do you see? Help wanted signs. We're going to be interviewing all day. You're just walking in here. You're walking in here and interview for a job, we'll give you $1 or something.
They want workers.
Yeah, they demand workers. The Trump administration raised the minimum wage? No. And yet, what do we have? Unemployment in this country is below 4%. In a capitalist economy, that's full employment. That basically means if you step outside and spit left or right, you can get a job if you want the job. And that means what? Black unemployment has plummeted, particularly amongst teenagers and single mothers. It's plummeted. It's gone down. It's hit rock bottom. Of course, we can't talk about that too much because if we do, we all know Trump's xenophobe and racist and all that.
They're going to attack Trump if we say that.
We don't want to talk about how 8 years of the Obama administration, unemployment stayed in the double figures. Stayed in the double figures. We can't say that. Can't talk about the facts.
Well, it seems to me that Riley is saying that a lot of this welfare is actually detrimental because it keeps people in dependency rather than being independent and self-sufficient.
We just do the research. The downfall of the black family, two-parent household in the black community, is in direct correlation with the Great Society program. It's in direct correlation. That's what he brings out in his book. Again, he just doesn't talk about it from an emotional standpoint. Here's what the research is showing. And if you also just look at some of these welfare programs, it's really sort of common sense. Because what they're saying to the woman is, hey, you don't need this guy. We got your housing covered. We got your food covered. We give you KTAP. And we'll hound this guy down for child support. What do you need that man in that household for? Your new husband is Uncle Sam.
Wow.
That's your new husband, your Uncle Sam. Now, of course, a lot of the left-leaning black intellectuals, they'll say, oh, well, you're blaming the victim. You're an Uncle Tom and all this other kind of stuff. Dude, let me tell you something. I'm an average working Joe in this country. And I've spoken to many of these black women. And I've actually had a black woman tell me, Corbin, I was about to marry my boyfriend, but then I got scared. I said, scared of what? He seems to be an okay guy. He said, no, he's fine, but what if something happens to him? I know nothing going to happen to the U.S. government. I know they'll always be there for me financially. Something might happen to him, or he might walk out on it. The U.S. government's not going to walk out on it. They didn't get married.
They did or did not?
They did not.
Oh, wow.
But that's an economic reality. That's a flat-out economic reality. And I can give you many anecdotal stories like that. Just an unfortunate reality. The evidence is clear. Fathers are critical. Fathers are important. But hey, go talk to one of these radical feminists and see what they say. Remember, one of their slogans used to be, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. That was one of their slogans. So what's that telling you?
I just wonder if they know what you're saying, or are they doing it on purpose? Are they doing it with good intentions, or what do you make of all that?
I'm not one too much into conspiracy thinking. Jason Riley in his book, he says, well-intended programs that had some unintended, very negative outcomes. But at the same time, Doc, after 40 years, we've got enough research, don't we? After 40 years, and you still keep doing it? Look at some of these Democratic candidate debates. They want to increase things. They want to do more of it. We already got a hole in the ship. You know we got a hole in the ship. So what do? Let's make it bigger.
The program is not working, and they want to make more of the same program.
Right, more of the same thing.
That doesn't work. If you try to say, well, we need to make everyone independent so they can be self-sufficient, you're going to be attacked.
You're going to be viciously attacked. That's something that a lot of black conservatives, something they have to deal with. Larry Elder or Jesse Peterson or Candace Owens, they come under some horrendous attacks. And you'll notice that a lot of these attacks are just flat out personal. They're not being attacked based on
Data,
yes, policy. They're not being attacked on that. These are personal attacks. Oh, you're an Uncle Tom, reverse racist, and all this other weird stuff. But that's why it's important to read books like Please Stop Helping Us. Riley's attitude is, look, here's my data, here's my research, feel free to attack it. And you have others like Thomas Sowell, same thing, Walter Williams saying the same thing. And really, now we have a lot of young white Americans who are moving towards this whole socialist stuff. I want to say to a lot of these young people is that, look, you need to listen to people who are going down that road. They have more experience. They have a little bit more wisdom. Like Dr. Thomas Sowell, he's probably one of the greatest intellectuals living, period. He talks about how at one time he was a Marxist. He adopted Marxism.
Well,
he went through Harvard. What would happen is that, I want to say he grew up, but what happened was he just said there were just certain things that kept nagging at him in his mind. He's a scholar. And as scholars, we got to look at evidence. We got to crunch the numbers. You have to be scientific in our thinking. And one thing that kept nagging at him was that the reality of socialism. In fact, one of his quotes is that socialism as an ideal is nice, but as a reality, it's horrible. Eldridge Cleaver, former Black Panther Party member, left the United States. Remember the Black Panther Party? Clearly called himself a Marxist-Leninist. He exiled himself to these socialist countries, North Korea, Algeria, etc. And when he was there, you know what he said? Boy, I miss the U.S. He said, you want to talk about police repression? You got to talk about those guys. Forget the United States. There's no comparison.
Really?
So he voluntarily came back. He just gave up that Marxist nonsense. I say to a lot of young people, particularly a lot of the young white youth who are into the socialist stuff, you need to listen to people who've been down that road, see why they turn it around. And for me, my turnaround point was exactly what Dr. Thomas Sowell put out. It's a nice idea. It's a horrific reality. And I could never see where socialism, quote unquote, worked. Everywhere I went, everywhere I studied, Cuba, North Korea, the former Soviet Union,
Venezuela,
Zimbabwe, all these places. What I saw was, one, political repression was just horrific. Two, people being thrown into camps. They call them re-education camps, like diversity training. Education for being what? For being a Christian. And I saw the economics just went down. There was equality, all right. Everybody was broke. Everybody was hungry. When they talk about equality under socialism, the overwhelming majority. Where does it work? It doesn't. Now, you listen to a Bernie Sanders today. What does he say? Well, we're talking about democratic socialism. What? Bernie, come on, man. No, seriously, actually a serious question. No, we're talking about democratic socialism. What do you mean by that? All these countries call themselves socialist and they weren't democratic. One guy, he once sort of said, like a doo-doo sandwich. And somehow or another, putting a nice word beside doo-doo is going to make the doo-doo taste better or something. No, it's still doo-doo sandwich. And then if you listen, you talk to these Bernie Sanders types, they'll tell you, well, socialism never really been tried. Really?
Please.
After 50-something years, never been tried?
This is one of my favorite people. And you mentioned his name. It's never been needed before. But this is Jesse Lee Peterson. He's got a newsletter, and this is a 4-color, slick paper newsletter. He's doing real well, and he's got his own radio program, I think television too. What you're saying, he's lived through it, I think, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. The book I read by him, the first one I read by him is called From Rage to Responsibility. I sort of refer to him as the 21st century Booker T. Washington. T. Washington wrote the classic Up From Slavery. It's a great book, From Rage to Responsibility by Jesse Peterson. I highly recommend that to anybody. It talks about how he sort of went from that entitlement mentality, and that's all socialism is, this entitlement mentality, to political conservatism.
Now, here it says, the truth no one else will say. It's never been so necessary. That sounds about what you're saying.
I agree. I think now more and more Black conservatives need to be more outspoken. They need to step up. Again, who would have thought during the Kennedy era that we'd have someone who's an avowed socialist, has been so for years and years and years, would almost win.
Bernie Sanders.
So you got to think all those votes and all those donors, and then of course now we got a couple of these socialist radicals in Congress and getting a lot of media attention. Now it's time for more black conservatives to meet this. It's going to be hard. You're going to get a lot of vicious attacks, personal attacks. We can no longer be silent.
Now, I just wanted to say one other thing while I'm thinking about it, and that is that there's a gentleman who we have our programs on, Miller, Brother Miller, who passed away. All of our radio programs go out on his network in western part of Kentucky, and he passed away. He's a fantastic person. Sometimes you go to a funeral home and see someone that you know that's passed away, and you say to yourself, well, I wonder if he made it in. But you don't wonder that about Brother Miller, because he's a tremendous person. He started this network, he's a pastor, and he's done a lot to promote the things of God in the state of Kentucky. We want to give our sympathy to the family, his wife, and I don't know if he has children or not, but we certainly want to give our condolences. This guy, Jesse Lee Peterson, and you, that's the voice of experience.
That's the one thing I want to emphasize. I used to be young too, and you just seem to think that the world revolves around you. History was last week or something like that. I want to emphasize to them guys, you got to listen to those people who walk down that road. I would strongly encourage people to pick up the book from Raise Your Responsibility. Eldridge Cleaver's Return to the United States very clearly talks about it. He just turned his back on this whole Marxism stuff and became a patriot and a believer. What were the influences that were impacting him to do that? And in his situation, he lived in those countries. He lived in these so-called socialist paradise, these workers' paradise. He was there. He said
Didn't work.
There were Black Panther members who had hijacked planes to Cuba. Go to Cuba. It was this socialist revolution, this great workers' paradise. So they hijacked the plane, exiled themselves to Cuba. They were sitting there. A lot of them came back. I'll face whatever FBI charges you want against me. Being in a U.S. prison is better than being in a Cuban socialist society.
Now, here's another guy. This guy's named Martin Moyer. He's saying a lot of the problems we have is because we've gotten away from God, taken prayer out of the public schools, the Ten Commandments, the Bible, creation science, and we're really promoting socialism and atheism, and they're making you and me pay for it. It's just a bad deal, and we need to work together, try to turn things around. Now, here's another book. We've talked about this before. It's called Truth for Youth, and this is a Bible that is very important. It's endorsed by Billy Graham. The first 100 pages are comics about the moral issues of today. Then it has almost all the bad guys get saved in the comics. It gives an invitation to receive Christ, and then it says on the back that it's perfectly legal to give this out for young people, for students to give this out in the public schools. This leading attorney said if anybody says it's not, that he'll take them to court. It's really important to get people young and help them to realize that there is a purpose to life. There's something worth living for, purpose for every one of our lives. We're here for a reason, and with God's help, we can turn our country around and we'll have joy and peace because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Some people say, well, it's like putting on your shoes in the morning. You can put the left shoe on the right foot and the right shoe on the left foot, and you can hobble around, but it's not the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to put God and the Lord Jesus first, and with God's help, we can do that, and God will help us, and we can turn our country back to God, like you're saying. So if you'd like one of these, give us a call right now. Best number is 893-2444. That would be the best number. Call that right now, 893-2444, and we'll send you a free copy. And if you like it, we can send you even more. We can turn this whole thing around. Is that right?
Yes, sir. You bet.
Well, you're a hero because you know what this is all about and turning things around. And you've been through it. You've been down that road. Do you think the Bible and God is part of the answer?
And that's why in some of these socialist countries, you saw one of the things they would viciously attack was not just the institution of the church, but the scriptures. And this whole thing about secular humanism and evolution, things of that nature. And one thing the Marxist movement started doing in the United States, and these are Marxists who actually would sit down when we have discussions, they would openly say this. They didn't think it would come about through violent revolution, but you had to engage in what's called cultural Marxism. Marcuse, Antonio Gramsci, these advocates. So you had to undermine things, teachings of the church, and challenge things. Like today, who in their right mind would ever think that you would have college-educated people walk around saying there's more than two sexes? Where'd that come from? Did our ideal to just sort of just drop out of the sky? No.
I guess it did.
These are there. You can identify the people, the intellectuals who started introducing the idea. Actually saying there's 64 genders.
64.
And yet, right, and yet they want to call someone like Dr. Simon, oh, he hates science, he believes in creation, he hates science. And they're the same people saying, well, there are 64 different genders. We have these people who are saying, well, parents should raise genderless children. Let that child to determine what sex they are. Dude, I wouldn't let my little baby determine what she's going to eat for dinner. It's going to be nothing but cheeseburgers and candy all the time. You crazy?
Yeah.
But that's Marxism from the beginning. If you read the books written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, the abolition of private property and the abolition of the family.
Wow.
It's clearly stated. Just like the way Adolf Hitler put in Mein Kampf. Everything he did is right there in Mein Kampf. Why are we surprised? Everything that these socialists are advocating today is right there in the writings, the original writings of Herbert Marcuse. It's in the writings of Antonio Gramsci. Margaret Sanger was not a conservative.
No. It seems to me that modern science has disproven the theory of evolution because there's so much more evidence now. Darwin wrote before there was really much scientific revolution. DNA pretty much proves the theory of evolution is false. So we've come a long way. Well, we're about out of time, Corbin, but we'd like to have you call, get this book, Truth for Youth. We'll send that out to you. And Corbin, it's great having you on the program. Keep up the good work. God bless you.
Yes, sir.